Very good. And next to Whitney, we have Gilbert Osoro. He is the manager, Universal Health Schemes at the National Health Insurance Fund. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Brian,
for finding time to be with us here.
Welcome.
And I want to start with you by asking you this. When you look at the NHIF, it is at the core of universal health coverage. What are you doing to help Kenya achieve UHC by the year 2030?
Thank you, Brian, and welcome viewers watching this program at home. As you are all aware, National Health Insurance Fund, previously known as National Hospital Insurance Fund, has been given the humongous responsibility of implementing UHC in this country. As Maria aptly captured it, we were part of the team that took part in the pilot that was undertaken in the 4 counties across the country. And our role was limited to registration, that is, registration of the principal members and declared dependents. Remember, the model that was used by the then government was what we call input-based financing, whereby the government purchased medical equipment, they purchased medication, and employed medical personnel to go and work in the 4 counties. After the expiry of the 1-year pilot, and after the lessons learned, it was decided by the national government and the county governments to change the model of financing to what is known as output-based financing, where UHC was nested in NHIF. As part of the UHC scale-up, the government scaled up from the 4 pilot counties to the remaining 44 counties across the country. And in the scale-up...
43.
43 rather. In the scale-up, the government agreed with the county governments to onboard 1 million indigent households. And when I talk of a household, I imply the principal contributor, the spouse, and the declared children arising from that marriage. What happened? The county governments and the State Department Social Protection, working closely with NHIF, were given the responsibility of identification of the poor and vulnerable households.
The 1 million.
The 1 million. These were identified by subjecting them to what is known as a welfare ranking tool that, amongst others, looked at the poverty index, the size of the household, and the geographical location. And based on that, NHIF was able to receive data that was submitted through the branch network to our head office for processing. I want to tell Kenyans, the 1 million indigent households that the government paid for started receiving the UHC benefit package from last year, that is 2022.
What kind of a package?
Very important question. For the UHC indigents, they're entitled to the UHC Super Cover benefit package that has 10 benefit packages. Among them, the outpatient, the inpatient, the maternity benefit package. We do have
what is the
dialysis.
maximum cover?
It depends. All benefit packages have got what we call aggregate limits of liability. A quick example is for the inpatient cover, where NHIF is obliged to cater for members for a period of 180 days or 6 straight months, both days inclusive. So in event a member of NHIF unfortunately is admitted in hospital, for 6 straight months, NHIF shall be able to cater for his inpatient bill. The other benefit packages that members can access under the UHC Super Cover benefit package include the highly patronized, the surgical benefit package, which is segregated into 3. We are talking of specialized surgeries, where NHIF is obliged to pay in excess of $500,000, and the limit of liability is 1 specialized surgery per year. We do also have the major surgeries and minor surgeries, of which a card is entitled to 2 major surgeries and 2 minor surgeries per year. We also have they highly patronize the oncology benefit package. Remember, cancer has become a national threat in this country. And for the oncology benefit package, NHF caters for chemotherapy. And when I talk of chemotherapy, I'm talking of first-line cancer, whereby we do cater for a maximum of 6 sessions at 25,000 each. For second-line cancer, which is now complex cancer, NHF caters for up to 150 shillings, up to a maximum of 4 sessions.
And all these benefits are for the 1 million people identified.
All, leave alone the indigents, all Kenyans.
All Kenyans.
Who are members of the national scheme.
Very good.
Which is the UHE Super Cover Benefit Package.
Very good. I'll come back to you because I would really want to find out where are we now. But you know, when you listen to the explanation by Gilbert, and he's right, the NHIF is a critical cog in the attainment of universal health coverage here in Kenya. Are you convinced that NHIF, as currently constituted, is well primed to deliver on that mandate?
Well, I mean, there are areas, the concept is great. The context is not taken care of. What do I mean by context? What is the health informatics in Kenya? For example, if you look at the patient to doctor ratio, in Kenya, for 1 doctor, you have 10,000 patients. The global requirement is 1 patient, 1 doctor for 1,000 population. Bed. In Kenya, for 1 bed, there's...
Sorry, you said one patient, for one doctor to...
Yes, 1 doctor to 10,000 patients in Kenya. The world recognized average needs us to have 1 doctor for 1,000 patients. In Kenya, we're doing 10,000.
No.
Sorry?
1,000. It's 1,000. I mean, it is 6,500. 6,500. That's according to the Ministry of Health.
Well, even if you take 6,500,
well, we are still way off.
The requirement is one doctor per
1,000
for 1,000 population, and this
so
means
1 doctor is serving 6 times more patients.
But even that is not the issue. The other big issue is that we have 1 bed for 1,000 people in Kenya. And then only 58% of beds in Kenya have oxygen, which means if there's critical illness, that's a challenge. But also look at these numbers. The issue is, even when I talk about context, the distance to a hospital. For example, in Kisii is 2.4 kilometers. Bondo is 3.4, just mentioned some. Kwale, 4.7. Makueni, 4.5. And the worst time is the distance, because the roads are bad. So there are places where you take 130 minutes to the nearest hospital. So if you look at that,
would be this?
I mean Kenya mostly, because they talk about the issue average between 130 minutes to the lowest being 128 minutes on average to reach the nearest health facility. That means that in critical illness, that's why you also the numbers about women. Maternal health for women is a serious issue, because women die just before giving birth, and childbirth has become dangerous because of that time, the issue of bed, and the other thing is getting a physician. So I can tell you have NHIF card, but how long does it take to get to hospital? How easy is it to access a bed? How easy is it to access a doctor? So I'm trying to say the universal health coverage is not about health financing only, which is offered by NHIF. It is about ensuring that people can access universal. Remember, the word universal here means more. You see, doctors are talking about the issue that they need people to be employed, nurses, doctors, they need to have good packages, they need to have what's called training, capacity building. So there's a more to achieving universal health coverage than just giving you NHIF card, because if you are in Bondo and you cannot be able to see a doctor within 130 minutes, then you are not universally health covered.
Very good. I want to bring on board Whitney Misheni. When you look at our investment in healthcare, when you look at what counties are doing, and we also need to have a conversation around whether counties, are managing the health system in Kenya properly. Are you convinced that, we are investing our money where our mouth is?
Thank you, Brian, and also a good evening to your viewers. First of all, we have to start by stating that access to affordable and quality healthcare is a right under Article 43 of the Constitution, meaning it's not that we're asking for privileges from the government, but it is a right. Mm-hmm. Now, coming to your question, how have the county governments invested in healthcare? When we look at of course we know that the national government is only under the Constitution, its mandate is referral hospitals and the policy and the research part. But for primary and secondary healthcare, that is devolved. Mm-hmm. When we come to counties, we look at of course when the national government enacts policies, at times we do find that it is a challenge for most of the counties to implement those policies. But also to your question, I would like to rebut to offer a rebuttal. I do believe that Kenya has invested greatly in infrastructure, the brick and mortar, mm-hmm. the buildings, the hospitals are there. But the question of services, are we offering quality services when it comes to those hospitals? I do believe that many buildings, they do exist, the infrastructure is there, as opposed to what Prof is saying, in my view. But when you go to hospitals, we know we have these dispensaries, of course, in our constituencies, but when you go there, which is of course the mandate of the governors, they've not allocated sufficient money to healthcare. When you go to dispensaries, we do find that there's no water, and water, just basic sanitation is also a very good preventive measure, so that to avoid the diseases to escalate to higher places where you'd need to go to the referral hospitals. Mm-hmm. So yes, we're talking about sanitation, water. We're also talking about power. Some hospitals do not have power, and also when they do have power, the power is not reliable. They probably do not even have generators to offer as a backup. We also see that they do lack basic medication. They lack just the basic paracetamols, just the basic painkillers. And also we also know that counties are understaffed. When you go to hospitals in your counties, you do find it's either the workforce is either very tired, or actually they're not even there. Like, they're not sufficient doctors in there, be it clinical officers, be it nurses, or even the doctors. They're not sufficient numbers, and if they're there, they're probably just overworked. And we've had complaints that doctors are underpaid. So there's that those many challenges which are under the docket of governors, but also it also begs the question, is it the issue of county governments? Do they have the funds, or is it that the national government is disbursing these funds late, so that they probably don't even have time, they don't have the capacity to probably even absorb those funds, or they actually lack the funds? So I do believe that it needs a concerted effort from the government, from the national government, be it in policy, mm-hmm. referral hospitals, in collaboration with the county governments, so that they can offer primary healthcare and secondary healthcare within the counties.
And also the other question is whether the counties themselves actually, do they have the technical wherewithal, to manage the health sector in this country? I want to bring
just before you take him on, mm-hmm. because I want to add to Whitney's point. If you look at the health budget that has gone to the county, out of the total health budget, 35% has gone to the counties, but 65% have been retained at the national level. Yet health is 100% devolved. So maybe Mr. Soro can explain to us whether this is accurate and whether this is pragmatic. Then the other thing, which is also very critical, is that we devolve physicians in the county. For example, you can find in Siaya or in wherever in Homa Bay, you might find CEC Health. But if you look at the qualification of those people who are running those healths, they might not be, as you said, having the capacity to run a health. Like, I remember the former CC for health for Siaya was a lawyer. I'm not saying a lawyer cannot run health, but then you realize there was not much health going on there. There was just much legal issues going on there. Mm-hmm. So without resources, as Whitney says, how much can they be able to do this? But at the same time, it is not just about having resources. It is about how do you have the capability to use these resources to deliver healthcare to the people.
Very good. Osoro, I want to hear from you. From where you see it as NHIF, when you look at the challenges, the healthcare challenges, that we are facing as a country, both at the national and at the county level, What would you say is the biggest challenge that we face?
Thank you, O'Brien. I don't know whether I start with the issue that Prof had raised on health informatics, or I go straight to the challenges.
You can respond to him and then, now, briefly, and then you can come to the question.
Yeah. One of the things that Prof said is that indeed that there's a challenge on access to healthcare services, especially in the sparingly populated areas. I mean, in the arid and semi-arid regions. But from where we sit at NHIF, in the new contractual cycle, NHIF sought to empanel and contract facilities in sparingly populated areas to address the issue of pro-urban, pro-rich, so that these people in the northern frontier districts could have access to healthcare services. And currently, in future, as we move along, we intend to do geospatial mapping so that for the providers in these semi-arid areas, they'll be given special preference when it comes to empanelment.
And when you talk about the future, which future are you talking about? 50 years?
No. It is works in progress. Yeah.
My history teacher told me the future is now, because once you say in future, as you stop, the future begins.
Thank you, Prof. The other thing that NHIF has done, we've contracted all Government of Kenya facilities in excess of 5,800. When you look at NHIF, the total number of healthcare providers that are empaneled and contracted currently is around about 8,500.
So
which
this
constitute
is both public and private?
Yes, 75% of the facilities that were empaneled are government facilities. And when you look at, because facilities are classified based on access to service, that is comprehensive, which are walk-in, walk-out facilities, and non-comprehensive, which are allowed to co-charge. So majority of the facilities in NHIF are comprehensive facilities. But not to digress from the point that the Prof raised, at NHIF, we are complementing the government effort towards attainment of UHC. And the way we are doing it, for the 1 million indigent households that were identified by the county government and sponsored by the national government, for the outpatient benefit package, whose provider payment mechanism is known as capitation, they have been capitated in government facilities. And that...
so they cannot access health services in private hospitals?
For the outpatient benefit package, I want to be very clear. As per the recommendation of the Council of Governors, the purpose we did this was to build robust and resilient health systems at the county, what is known as health system strengthening. And
just before you proceed, so if they don't have, if for example the county government, county hospitals, they do not have the needed services by these indigent people, who do they go to?
Very important question, O'Brien. In the new contract cycle, we embedded a clause that healthcare providers shall have a service level agreement with surrounding facilities for purposes of referring patients there when they are unable to provide the service.
Very good. Proceed.
So we've put into place contingency measures. So that is part of our contribution. But the other thing we are doing at NHIF, we are lobbying county governments to ring-fence the funds that we reimburse to county facilities. Remember, the new constitution that was passed in 2010 established the county governments, and health is a devolved function. What happened then is that we used to have the Facility Improvement Fund, whereby the monies that were generated by facilities were retained in the same facilities for purposes of procuring medication, development, and hiring medical personnel. But when the new constitution passed, all funds that were collected by the facilities were channeled back to the consolidated accounts before they were appropriated by the MCAs to be channeled back. And what came out is that there was underinvestment in healthcare services. In order to ring-fence these monies, a number of counties have been able to pass what is known as the Facility Improvement Fund, which was recently revised to ensure that all funds that are generated there are retained within. And the net effect of this Facility Improvement Fund, if you look at the counties that have passed that fund, they are doing exceptionally well. Allow me to cite some counties, one of which is Nakuru County, which has grown in leaps and bounds because they've been able to retain the funds there, and they've even been able to undertake capital developments arising from the funds that they generate. The other thing that NHIF has done, we have sought to prioritize reimbursement to government facilities. Remember, we come from an area whereby in the past, it's been erroneously been interpreted that we favor private providers. I want to use this platform to tell them that when it comes to government facilities, we've given them special preference because these are the facilities that the government intends to use to be able to attain universal health coverage. Now, over to the issue that you raised on challenges. Indeed, UHC is not an event, a one-off event. It's a thing that is ongoing. We have had a number of challenges, including the recent challenge that we had on healthcare fraud, wastage, and abuse. But I want to concentrate what the fund is doing to ensure that Kenyans get value for money, especially on the issue of fraud, wastage, and abuse. NHIF has put into place mitigating measures against fraud, wastage, and abuse. And one of the things that we've done is digital transformation.
And even before you proceed, would you help us with statistics as to, of all the claims that you process, what percentage is fraud?
Now, we do not have a scientific report at the moment, but we have the industry estimates whereby the regulator, the insurance authority,
the IRA,
says that from their risk index, 30% of what we pay goes to fraudulent providers.
As NHIF or as industry? As industry. But for you as NHIF, you haven't done any study to find out of 10 claims, how many are fraud?
There is no scientific report. We rely on the industry report, which is the regulator.
I want you to hold your breath at this point because we are taking a short break and thereafter we'll be coming back with more conversation. I can see you want to make an input. Can I give you 30 seconds?
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that it is critical to know that as far as the statistics I have is that 43% is private of healthcare in Kenya. And that is significant, even if you try to say that you are giving more attention to private. And then also you find that private have found areas where they can actually do low cost more than public hospitals because they tend to be in convenient places rather than not accessing the people where they are.
So you're saying 43% of the hospitals that are accredited are private?
Yes,
and so 57% are government?
Yes.
Very good. A public hospital.
Yeah.
Are those numbers okay?
I want to tell Prof, the fact is that in our database, 75% of the HCPs are government.
They're government?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. We'll be coming back with more conversation. You're watching The Scorecard live from Broadcasting House. Our conversation tonight revolves around the universal health coverage, what we need to do and the missteps that we have covered in the past, and how do we avoid the pitfalls in the future. Yambo will be coming back with the question of the day and of course sampling some of your views. Stay right here because coming up next is a short commercial break.
He has been making a fool of me while showing me the face of a righteous and respectable man. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, that's right.
What do you want? Hey, where do you think you're going?
Las bandidas.
Wiki hii kwenye Mkulima tuzungumzie kilimo kipya cha mnyama huyu konokono.
Tumefanyia utafiti tukapata kwamba ni maji ambayo yanaweza tengeneza baadhi ya bidhaa ambazo hutengeneza ngozi, pia hufanya ngozi irembeke, na zaidi kabisa pia inatumika katika utibabu wa baadhi ya magonjwa yanayohusu ngozi.
Jiunge nasi Jumamosi saa 10:30 hapa KBC Channel 1.
لاجل ما يحقق احلامك ليله السفر قعدنا نتكلم بالساعات قالوا لي بصوا قدامك ما تبصش للي فات.
Mini Allah uwe na imani, mwingine falyastajibu li, na wewe pia umuitikie Mwenyezi Mungu. Kumuitikia Mungu ni vipi? Ni wewe utende matendo mema aliyokuamrisha Allah na uache haramu. Isiwe unaomba dua kumbe unakula chakula cha haramu.
Baadhi ya masharti haya ni kama kumcha Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kuepukana na makatazo ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, na kumtegemea yeye peke yake, kumpwekesha katika ibada zako zote kama Muislamu.
Will never ever replace him. Never. You can just go back to where you came from and then come back when somebody else dies.
You're not the only one who lost her father, right? Is Mama Pauline?
No.
Do you have to be that nasty?
How much does she know?
And why didn't anyone tell Nick?
Who are we blackmailing? Don't walk with your face down, darling. As much as everyone is trying to put on a tough face right now.
We are tough.
Welcome back. We are live on KBC Channel 1. This is The Scorecard. Our conversation tonight revolves around the universal health coverage. We are in the company of Marie Yambo. She's going to take us through the question of the day, and if there are any responses, then she's going to take us through Marie Yambo.
Indeed, Brian, thank you so much, and thank you to our viewers for keeping it Channel 1. Remember, our question of the day: which universal health coverage benefit package under NHIF have you used lately, and how did it benefit you and your family? That's the question we are seeking to hear from you. How have you benefited from this, you and your family? So get, tweeting and get contacting us on Facebook. I can see already some of you are or have already responded. We'll be able to sample them as we continue with this particular program. Now, O'Brien, even as we wait for our viewers to continue engaging us on the social media, I think I would want to just bring back Mr. Osoro just a little bit, because we're talking about universal health coverage. UHC, we've seen what the government has allocated to that. NHIF is a big player in that as well, in terms of paying for the the health benefits, if I may put it. But my question is, Mr. Osoro, there was a pilot program that was done in 4 counties, and I think then it was enrolled, to the rest of the country. Could you bring us up to speed with how the progress is, and whether is it working? Because we are talking about universal health coverage, which means you can go to any parts, of the country, or at least you can access help in any hospital to the maximum, of your needs. Yeah.
Thank you, Maria. I want to tell Kenyans that indeed we've made tremendous progress after the pilot. Remember, immediately after the pilot, the government of Kenya decided to sponsor 1 million indigent households. And the figure arose from this. There was a census that was done in 2019 that was titled the Kenya National Census Report, which was called the Housing and Population Census Report, whereby it was noted that Kenya has 12.1 million households. When I talk of a household, I imply the principal member, the spouse, and the siblings arising out of that particular marriage. Out of the 12.1 million households, it was noted that 5.1 million households were classified as poor and vulnerable. In the first phase of the UHC scale-up, the government decided to onboard 20%, which translates to 1 million households. The average size of a household in this country is 3.9 as per the NHF database, which translates to 4. In a nutshell, from the 1 million households, the government was able to onboard 6 million Kenyans for the first time who are poor and vulnerable to have access to health insurance coverage. But I also want to mention one thing. Apart from the UHC indigents, the government from 2014 has been sponsoring indigents. We have a program that is known as the Health Insurance Subsidy Program. One, for the orphans and vulnerable children. And when we talk of the OVC program, the government sponsored 254,053 households for that particular program. We also have the health insurance program for the older persons and persons with severe disability. And in the year under review, as part of the scale-up, the government did sponsor 58,800 indigent households. We also have other programs. The government free maternity cover. The government of Kenya recognizes that children are a blessing. Mungu akileta mtoto analeta na sahani yake. So for that particular program, the government has been able to sponsor 1.2 million. And remember, Linda Mama is a revolving fund. It is not an insurance, whereby NHIF incurs medical bills on behalf of the government of Kenya, and the government reimburses NHIF for the same. We also have the public secondary school insurance cover, which is also known as the EduAfya, which caters for public secondary school students. And for that particular program, the government of Kenya has sponsored in excess of 3 million students in public secondary schools. So if you look at that figure, the government of Kenya has sponsored very many indigent households. In the UHC dispensation, we are basically saying this: for those who can pay, let them pay. For those who cannot be able to pay, let them be identified, and the national government subsidizes or pays for their premiums.
I want to bring Whitney on this issue. I mean, Osoro is saying that the NHIF do not have a scientific way of finding out or gauging fraud within their system, or what number of claims would be considered to be fraud. Do you think this is a challenge? Because then how do they? What measures? Then what then remedies would they put in place to deal with fraud if they do not know how big is fraud in their system?
Thank you, O'Brien. We, of course, everyone in Kenya knows that NHIF has been coupled with fictitious claims, basically just fraud, and also corruption allegations, and also just basically misgovernance. So when we're talking about realizing universal health coverage, it all boils down to the corporate governance of that institution. Because once we see allegations of fraud, fictitious claims, them paying some hospitals, which of course did not give the services that they claim they did, and we also see corruption within the top echelons of NHIF. I think it does beg the question of how can you reform? How can Kenyans be asking for structural reforms when they are remitting all this money to NHIF when NHIF itself cannot assess itself? So it brings about the question of accountability and corporate governance, because we do know that Kenyans do not have an issue with paying 2.7% of their gross salaries to NHIF, or also just 1,000 for the unemployed, paying that to NHIF. Kenyans do not have issues with paying that money, but it just boils down to the trust deficit of NHIF. Because once we pay that money, we see that when we go to hospitals, we do not get the services, or when we get the services, probably we are also asked to top up, or being told that NHIF does not cover for some services. So I do believe that accountability, corporate governance, NHIF has to inspire confidence, because as we've seen, only 26% of Kenyans are covered under NHIF. And when we're talking about universal health coverage, we're talking about 100% all Kenyans being covered within 2030. And we see countries like Ghana have gotten to 70% of their population being covered under the national insurance, and also countries like Rwanda have 90%, because I do believe that the government has instilled confidence in the citizens to have confidence in the systems. So for Kenya, I think for Kenya to realize universal health coverage, we have to first have trust in NHIF in matters of corporate governance. Also, we know that KEMSA is also part of those institutions in government that have been riddled with corruption and fraud. So I do believe that Kenyans, they do not have a problem with paying all this money to NHIF, but we just want to see value for the money and also for services to be delivered. So I do believe that NHIF has to they have to be accountable. We need to see probably convictions for all these stories that are coming out in the headlines, so that Kenyans can have confidence and also we can achieve universal health coverage within the next 7 years.
Prof, when you look at the leadership of NHIF, and you're talking about an institution that in the last 5 years there has been about 4 changes in management, that is in the CEO's position, and that really points to a problem, in the leadership of that organization. And we know for sure, and you're a student of management, we know for sure that an institution is as good as its leadership.
Yes.
So how then do you address that lacuna of leadership at NHIF?
I think, if you just give small example, remember this thing called Telecom Kenya. Telecom Kenya was a place that if you wanted even to get a telephone line connected to your house, you needed to bribe the officials. Michael Joseph came and hived off Safari from Telecom Kenya. He never imported anybody to come and work, but with good leadership and good governance, he built Safaricom to be among the most respected company in the world. And I'm sure we can say in the world, but I'm sure I'm saying the world as a proud Kenyan. Let's talk about it in the region, which means that with the good corporate governance and good leadership at the corporate level, NHIF can do wonders in the same way Safaricom can do. NHIF can become the Safaricom of healthcare. And with NHIF becoming the Safaricom of healthcare financing, universal health coverage can be covered. But if you look at the trends at which people have been moving, I've known that thing a lot because I'm playing the industry, I don't want to say much. But if you look at the board, they have representation. For example, there's somebody representing religious leaders. There are some people representing the peers. And currently there's a Muslim representing religious leaders. And there was a claim, why is Catholic Church or Christianity offering most healthcare not being in that board? So there are those politics that are there. But what I believe is that good corporate governance will work. Like if I look at the numbers I was trying to tell you, strategically, NHIF is giving empanelment to people who cannot offer healthcare to Kenyans and avoiding to pay claims, like I've told you. Like he said, and actually he can clarify that, more empanelment is going to public facilities without drugs, without medical practitioners, and without facilities to offer healthcare. Less is going to private health hospitals, and you look at more claims go to private hospital because whenever they're given empanelment, they can treat patients. And I think they need to change strategy of not being too much pro-public, but also being pro-citizens, because what is important is offer healthcare. And in fact, if you go to some developed countries or even just go to India, public health facilities seem to offer better healthcare than even private. But for us in Kenya, anything public means inefficient, ineffective, poorly run. Anything private is more efficient, more effective, and better run. Which means that in Kenya, they're a better run hospital. In Kenya, they're better run health insurance schemes. Like you talk about the issue of fraud, I can actually tackle that. The 30% of fraud is an issue, but even a worse issue is where people are given medicine they don't take, where is the abuse. I did statistics when I was doing some work for insurance company, and I found that there is over 3 billion worth of medicine which is given in hospital, paid off from insurance, which are never taken. Like if you go to hospital, you are given a big chunk of medicine which you don't need to recover, but just because you have a paying power in terms of medical card, you are given which you don't need. For example, I've even saw the time they gave my son something like inhaler, which he does not need. It was just because we have a medical card. So we have all these abuses, and for me to rectify this, which we did for healthcare, is that NHIF need to employ medical doctors who know all the fraud loopholes that are used by their fellow medical doctors to steal medicine. They say, set a thief to catch a thief. That's the only way to go about it.
Well, I don't know whether that is practical. Yes, Marie.
The same thing that Whitney has, has raised, and Prof at the same time, is issue of confidence. If I go to that hospital, will I be able to be catered for in terms of the services and the medicine? And this is actually a comment from one of our viewers. It's called Nanda Saba William. He says one of the benefits or packages he's used is the outpatient was only given painkillers. The services are restricted and don't not surpass a certain cost. So even as you respond, Gilbert, could you also respond to William here? Those are some of the complaints we've had, where you go to the hospital, but then again you're told to go and buy medicine. But NHIF is saying that we pay for everything.
Take the shortest time possible.
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. I'll want to outline the measures that NHIF has put into place to mitigate against fraud, wastage, and abuse. The first measure we've done at NHIF is to undergo digital transformation. As you are aware, NHIF rolled biometric enrollment and authentication of members when His Excellency the President commissioned UHC last year in February in Mombasa. The other thing that we've done is migration to the electronic health records on the digital platform. Currently, all facilities are launching claims through the eClaim platform, except some few facilities that are in level 2 and 3, mostly government facilities. We also come up with the self-care platforms. These are one-stop shop whereby you can be able to check your contribution history, you can be able to check the dependents who are declared in the system, you can be able to check the pre-authorization status and other issues that pertain to NHIF. You can also engage our members through the chatbot.
Very well. We
have also the notifications. In order to curb fraud, wastage, and abuse, we have recently rolled out notifications whereby for members who requisition for procedures, they get a notification in their phone informing them of the procedure, whether it's been approved or declined. Same case to the attending consultants who want to undertake procedures. They get notifications on their phone. The other thing that we are doing at NHIF is post-claim adjudication. We do random sampling and look at the claims that have been launched by providers to check out for outliers. We've also put in a multi-sectoral approach whereby we have quality assurance officers, who are medics, clinicians, nurses, and others, who undertake clinical audits on the claims that are forwarded by healthcare providers to NHIF. We have registration and compliance officers who complement the efforts of the clinical officers by checking out the payrolls and assisting in what we call hospital bed usage surveillance, confirming who's admitted. The other thing that we do is data authentication, whereby whenever we get data for registration, we subject it to both internal and external authentication through the Kenya National Bureau of Registration, the Integrated Population Registration Platform. We have a dedicated toll-free line whereby, which I call hotline, members can be able to report instances of fraud, wastage, and abuse. We have dedicated emails. We do data analytics and predictive modeling to be able to pick out outliers, whereby...
Thank you, Soro. Yeah, I mean, one thing that, we must appreciate here that, when you look at the National Health Insurance Fund, it is one of the leading social health insurance funds in Africa. That one should not be lost to us. But definitely, it's proper to say that there are some loose ends that we can tie and make NHIF better. Because I can see we're almost coming to the tail end of this conversation. But I want to hear from Osoro, and I'm giving you 30 seconds. What do we need to do to make NHIF more efficient and more responsive to the citizenry needs in terms of health?
Thank you, O'Brien. I want to appeal to Kenyans to continue supporting NHIF. The good book, my Bible, tells me that all have sinned and fallen glory of the kingdom. Yes, we might have challenges, but our management and board are working overdrive to ensure that NHIF serves Kenyans effectively and efficiently as the vehicle that the government intends to use to attain UHC.
Osoro, what I'm asking is, what do we need to do as a country to make NHIF more responsive and more effective?
I'll come to your question.
You don't have
need
time.
to leverage on technology. The government is big on technology. We are looking at adapting artificial intelligence and advanced algorithms to ensure that there's prompt service delivery, real-time data that can help in informed decision-making.
Very good.
That is the way to go.
Whitney, what do we need to do to make NHIF more efficient and public-centric?
Thank you, O'Brien. First of all, I do believe that the foundation of NHIF is perfect, just the foundation of it. But for me, the biggest challenge of NHIF is the corporate governance, meaning I do believe that we need to see accountability for all these allegations, and also some have been proven for fraud, corruption, and also just, the misgovernance that's going on at NHIF. So we want to see accountability, we want to see transparency there so that we can realize value for money, and be it prosecutions and convictions. I think we need just some clarity on that issue, because we cannot be having this as a vicious cycle where NHIF has cases every quarter of a year. So I do believe that corporate governance is a top thing.
Corporate governance will be critical.
Yeah, some structural reforms on that.
Very good. Prof.
For me, I think we need leadership, corporate governance, but above all, we need to strengthen our systems, processes, and structures, because NHIF should have the biggest brand. In fact, should be a bigger brand than Safaricom, because there is no any other national health insurance that competes with NHIF. How comes its brand value is that small that no people sees needs to consume it? And in fact, for me, NHIF offers and packages remains opaque to the point that, like he said, who is on this offer? It's just like those tariffs used to have on Safaricom, whereby somebody is tariff, somebody is faster tariff. So there are like 35 tariffs under one line. So you don't know which one to buy, which SIM card should you buy to call easy, who has advantage, who doesn't. So I'm sure there must be clarity as to what is the voltage of your card. What can it do? What can it not do? I have been sitting in a board in the hospital where NHIF has been paying. NHIF is the largest data in all hospitals in Kenya. You have the facts. If you sit in a board of hospital, the biggest data NHIF followed by others. So this needs to come. They need to pay these claims to hospitals to ensure that hospitals can operate.
Very good. Time now for us to do the scorecarding as usual, and I will start with Whitney Misheni. When you look at the government, is the government spending enough on healthcare in Kenya?
Absolutely not. I would give it a 2. We know that for the budgets for 2022-2024, 100 in total healthcare, 141 billion was allocated to healthcare. That's a paltry 3.8% of the 3.6 trillion budget. Yeah. So I believe that that's below the Abuja Declaration of 2001, which stipulates that it should be more than 15%. So the government has failed terribly in healthcare financing, so I would give it a 2.
You give it 2?
Yeah.
Professor,
I give it a 1.
Is the government spending enough?
I give it a 1 because they have decreased the funding to healthcare.
The 1?
It has decreased.
Very good. Osoro?
I'll give them 4.
You give them 4?
Yes.
Why?
The government has shown its willingness to ensure that no Kenyan is left behind. They've been sponsoring indigents, and they've put into place mechanisms to ensure that UHC is attainable in our time.
So you're giving it 4. And finally, the next question is NHIF well positioned to deliver universal health coverage, Prof?
Positioned, yes, because NHIF has got infrastructure in all counties and all constituencies and almost nearly all wards. So position is okay. The only thing is that the execution is another story. You know, you can be well positioned, but you can't score a goal, even in football. So that I'll give them 2.
You give them 2?
Yes.
Wow. Today you're becoming a 2-person. And Whitney?
I would actually, I do believe in the foundation of NHIF. I do believe that it's capable of so much more than it's doing. I think the potential is there, but just as I've said, the corporate governance. So just for the foundation of NHIF and its ability to deliver the universal health coverage, I would give it a 4.
You'd give it a 4?
I think it's well positioned, very well positioned. Yes.
Well, this I think is the highest scoring you've ever done on this show. Yeah?
Yes, I hope I don't regret it. I do believe I probably will regret it, but I have faith in them.
No, you shouldn't.
Very good. Osoro, is NHIF well positioned to deliver on the universal health coverage?
I want to affirm yes, based on the ongoings at NHIF. Remember, currently.
So you're giving it what?
5.
You're giving it 5?
Yes, we're in the process of recruiting a CEO and the 6 directors, which is a process that is now ongoing. There are the legal reforms, and as the Prof has put it, legal and governance reform. There's the implementation of the organizational structure.
So you're giving it 5?
Yes.
5.
And digital transformation.
Very good. Gentlemen and a lady, thank you so very much indeed for, of course, for finding time to be with us this evening and, of course, to helping us go through this topic of universal health coverage. We just now want to go back to Marie Yambo so that she can just take us through the comment, if any, before we call it a night. Marie Yambo.
Well, indeed, O'Brien, just as our panelists have given their different views, Kenyans have also given their views, and one of them is that William, and I think you did get to hear what Mr. Osoro, who is representing, NHIF in as far as the universal health coverage is concerned. And I think, O'Brien, definitely NHIF is in a good position to deliver, but then the question of leadership and governance is what they need to tighten. And for me, for you back at home, I think the challenge is to ask Kenyans, are you holding your leaders accountable in as far as the UHC is concerned? Remember, the Kenya Kwanza has already said they are committed to delivering UHC, the universal health coverage in the country. So for me, is hold your leaders accountable.
Very good. Thank you so very much indeed, Marie Yambo. And to the people watching us, thank you, Asante Sana, for being with us through the last 1 hour or so, discussing the universal health coverage. To Professor Asante Sana for your time, to Whitney. Let's see you again on Tuesday next week, and to Gilbert Osoro, Asante, and of course for sharing your insight with us here on the Scorecard. Marie Yambo, Asante for your time. My name is O'Brien Kimani. We come to the end of the Scorecard tonight. We'll see you again on Tuesday. Stay right here to know what topic we shall be unpacking on Tuesday next week. On behalf of the production team, have a good night.
Cheza Loto Moto. Sasa unaweza jishindia instantly na Loto Moto. Dial *570 hash. Wakati wowote, siku yoyote ya wiki na mahali popote. Dial *570 hash. Kisha chagua moja kati ya games za Loto Moto. Weka stakes zako 50 shillings, 300, 500, 2,000 shillings. The bigger your stake, the greater or the bigger your prizes. Cheza mara kadhaa na kumbuka, cheza responsibly. 18 years and above.
Cheza Loto Moto.
Ujue ukilainika kidogo, sote tuko shidani.
Hawa watu walionibia hizi pesa nikiwapata watakoma kuzaliana.
So huu usiku ulipotoka, una uhakika hukumwona kumbe?
Itakuwaje mfanyikazi wako awe na kuita kwa jina la Malikia wangu, ili hali yeye ni mfanyikazi?